Welcome to the Living Your Greatness podcast. I am your host, Ben Mummy. The purpose of the podcast is to inspire millions of people across the world to achieve greatness and enhance their overall personal well-being. Living Your Greatness is becoming the go-to resource that CEOs, elite athletes, professional coaches, and entrepreneurs rely on to upgrade themselves. The podcast helps you master the best of what other people have already figured out. So I gladly invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy tuning in to today's episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Living Your Greatness. This is your host, Ben Mummy, and today we have a new guest to the show, and his name is Terry Salman. So for those of you that don't know Terry, he is one of Canada's most dedicated philanthropists. Born in Montreal, he served as a sergeant with the U.S. Marines during the Vietnam War before becoming a legend in the mining finance. Terry worked with Nesbitt Thomson before leaving to form the financial advisory Salman Partners, where he served as president, CEO, and co-director of research. Today, he is president and CEO of Salman Capital and Honorary Consul General of the Republic of Singapore. Terry holds a BA from Chaminade University of Hawaii and an MBA from University of Hartford and an honorary doctorate from BC Institute of Technology. He received the Order of Canada in 2020 and the Public Service Star from the Office of the President of Singapore in 2021. Terry, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm super happy that we met, Terry, back in Vancouver, because not only do you have a really interesting story or background, but you're also Montrealer like me. I'm really excited that you're here today because this is actually the 100th episode for Living Your Greatness. So I'm excited to not just celebrate your book that you recently published, but also celebrate together the 100th episode. So Terry, I want to get started here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you spend your formative years growing up? And what inspired you to become a sergeant in the U.S. Marines before becoming a legendary name in the mining finance?
You know, I grew up in Montreal, which is always a place dear to my heart. And talking to you, it just brings back these memories. You know, I wanted to join the Marines. I wasn't a sergeant initially. It's very hard to become a sergeant in the Marine Corps, but I joined as a private, and I was honored to join as a private. It was an amazing experience. Coming from Montreal, a city that was Canada's financial capital when I lived there, to joining the Marines, which was a totally different experience, and in many ways uplifting, in many ways challenging, but you know, I think it's best described the Marine Corps experience. The former Senate Majority Leader of the United States was, you know, a proud Marine like I was, and like I am, and on his gravestone he had the epitaph that really said his name, Private USMC. So. That's what he wanted. So my point is, I had the wonderful experience of growing up in Montreal, having a father and mother who lived there in the golden years of what I call the golden years of the financial services business in Montreal. And by a long way around, I joined the Marines and worked my way back to Montreal years later and started in the finance business. But I never forgot my roots, and I still don't. I'm going to a wedding there in September for one of the people in my book.
That's awesome. And which person is that? Are you allowed to say, Terry?
Yes, my godson, Jonathan.
That's awesome, Terry. Well, I'm excited for you, to come back and get a visit in Montreal. And more importantly, I want to thank you, Ashley, for, sharing with my listeners, a little bit more about you. It was a very humbled answer, and that's why I'm excited to dive into more about it. Something that I want to share with people that really stood out when I met you, Terry, was I didn't want to bring you on because of your financial wealth or your entrepreneurship success, but most importantly, your character. And something that stands out from you is you are clearly someone that has a passion to give back to others. And in fact, you actually recently wrote a book called What We Give. For those of my listeners who haven't read your book or aren't familiar, what exactly is your book? Are there any stories or memorable experiences that you want to talk about?
The book is called What We Give. So throughout my life, starting with my parents in Montreal, a lot of people gave back to me. When I had the ability to do so myself, I embraced it because you're only on this earth for a short period of time. You're not going to be remembered by how much money you made or how many houses or cars you had, but you will be remembered by giving back to people. And even if you aren't remembered, you will try your best to enhance a whole variety of people. And this book is about that, the organizations, the people. They gave me my chance, and I used that. I embraced what they gave me to give back, sometimes with my time, sometimes financially. But the book is about where I came from, humble beginning to doing a lot of things that I'm particularly proud of. And I wish I had done more, but there's still time. And I am always looking at new things to do. And there isn't a week that goes by that somebody doesn't ask me to get involved in something on a charity basis. So I'm big on giving back because that's, to me, the most important legacy you can have. So the book is about the wonderful people. And, during COVID, I couldn't see my grandchildren. So some of these people in the book who I hadn't seen in years and years, like two, for example, in particular, Lawrence Bloomberg, and I met them at my book launch in Toronto, and I was able to see somebody I'd worked with 50 years ago, two of them, Bob Dorrance and Lawrence Bloomberg, both who became prominent people in the financial business. But really, the people became my friends because I hadn't seen them in a long time. And it was a way of reaching out to people from the past that along my journey enabled me to take on more and to realize that it isn't about you. It's about the people and organizations that you can do the most for. And those challenges I keep taking on. That's a little harder maybe when you get older, but it's inspiring to me to move forward and watch so many people of all walks of life. The book is about these people, some of which you would know, many you wouldn't know. The reader is left with a story that I could, not everything I did in my life, but certainly some of the highlights that I'm proud of.
That's awesome, Terry. But who are three standout people that you think maybe, inspired you or mentored you to build your own legacy?
Well, a fellow, Brian Ani, my mentor at Nesbitt Thomson, who gave me my first job, and he said to me, which is in the book, if I can't hire a Canadian who's a U.S. Marine Corps Vietnam vet, what good am I? So that's a quote that from Brian that has carried me 40 years. So he stands out. Lieutenant General Walt, a famous Marine who gave me my right to go back to Honolulu, where my wife was at the time. And I wrote him a letter saying, if I make it out of here alive, I'd like to go back to Honolulu. I never heard back from him. Near the end of my tour in Vietnam, I saw this Jeep come up with the commanding general's flag, and he asked me if I was Sergeant Terry Salman. I said yes. He said, here's a letter from the commanding general, and said, report to Marine Barracks, Pearl Harbor. So he was another one. Jacques Menard, who's a famous Montrealer. If there's anybody that I admire in a charity and giving back way, it's Jacques. Nobody that I'm aware of in my lifetime has given back as much as this Montrealer who passed away not too long ago. But he exemplified community service, philanthropy, and just being mentorship. He had them all. So those are three.
Thanks for sharing those names. So cool to hear about them. Makes me think, when I look at your book, you have it in different sections, right? And one of them is in terms of your experience as like a Marine, right? And so a question that I have is, what is it that makes a great soldier? How does a soldier go from good to great?
That's a very good question. What makes a good soldier or a good Marine is one that doesn't focus on himself. The institution is worth a lot. So maintaining the quality and the goodness, if you will, of the organization and what it stands for is important. Being a good leader, listening to men, have a lot of time for their issues, for the challenges that they're going to help them to become a better person, help them to become a better soldier or Marine, by the training, by the support by other people, focusing on the good that can be developed out of being a really good Marine or soldier. It's an organization that respects leadership, that grows with you as you grow. It has incredible challenges and difficulties at times, particularly in a combat zone. But at the end of the day, you're all in it together. So the important thing is we work together. We work together. We look forward to the next journey. We don't undermine our quality of the people that we work with.
I love that. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I think you mentioned some really good characteristics of leadership, of working together, coming together, that team spirit philosophy, and other parts of your book, focus on other areas of your life, right? As a businessman, as well as a philanthropist. How do you go from good to great in those areas?
Well, because philanthropy crosses so many people. Businessman is very focused and sometimes very selfish because it's a very, very narrow window. It's really about, your organization and the opportunities that you have. That's what, and the responsibilities that businessmen have. A philanthropist is trying to make the world better. A philanthropist is trying to improve the quality of people's lives. A philanthropist is trying to give back to those who are least fortunate. A philanthropist treats, the most marginalized people as an opportunity to make the world a better place. It's hard to do. There's so much uncertainty and so much. But a philanthropist tries to move the needle, to focus away from you, but what it means to give to others and to organizations that can help a broad group of subsection of our society.
I appreciate those definitions as well as explanation of how we can be a great philanthropist. And something that I admire, especially from the mining investment space, but there's a lot of cool philanthropists in the space, right? There's Frank Giestra, there's Pierre Lassonde, there's yourself, right? There's a lot of very highly successful mining entrepreneurs that really admire to give back. When I was about to read your book, I couldn't help but notice that Pierre Lassonde actually wrote a nice comment, about your book. And he wrote, I have it here in my hand, a worthy read for people who want to change the world. So a question I have for you, Terry, is I'm curious, when was the first time that you met Pierre? I'm sure that you've met him before, especially being from the space. And are there any memorable stories that you want to share?
Well, I met him a long time ago. I can't remember exactly. I think it was at a mining conference in Australia, but that was a long time ago. What I admire most about Pierre is that as he just gives back, and as he gets older, he gives more. So when I asked him, why doesn't he spend more time in the South or Arizona or some other warmer climate? And he said, well, I can go there for a short period of time, and then I want to go back to work. So he goes back to his office in Toronto, and the breadth of what he gives is astonishing. I don't know him that well, but I know him well enough to call him a friend, and I admire so much what he does, and the way he gives back. And to my knowledge, he doesn't really ask for any credit. He just goes ahead and does it, and it's surprising. Whether it's I think it's a music program at Mount Allison University, for example, which was totally unexpected, I would think. But then to the reader, to the observer like myself, I said, "Wow, Mount Allison is a good school, but why there?" But so it's just the surprise in which he gives, and he's a humble guy too. When I was notified that I received the Order of Canada, I was having dinner with my wife in West Vancouver, and Pierre just sent me this amazing voice message saying how congratulating me, and it was just such an uplifting to hear his voice. It was out of the blue. He was one of the first people to call me.
That's awesome. It obviously speaks a lot of Pierre, right? To take the time to write you, especially everyone does live in a busy world. So to do that must have felt really good for you, to hear from him. And you're such a humble man, Terry. And I'm curious to ask you, winning an award from the Order of Canada is pretty exciting. Why do you think that they chose you?
It's kind of it's uplifting, but it's stressful. Why did they choose me? I don't know. There's a lot of good people out there, but I'll best describe it to you. I was at a hockey game, and this 12-year-old was sitting next to me, and he noticed the Order of Canada pin. And he said to me, "What did you do to deserve that?" I was taken back. I didn't know what to say. I said, "Look, I'm just going upstairs to the washroom. I'll come back and I'll try to answer that." And his name was Graham. So I came back and I explained to Graham, I said, "I've been involved with many organizations to do good things. I was a small player to motivate that organization to take it to the next level. Along the way, we helped a lot of people. People noticed that, maybe. I don't know. But whether I got the Order of Canada or I didn't, my life really didn't change. Actually, when you get something like so honorable as the Order of Canada, it's stressful. And I am a person that doesn't like to be in the limelight. So handling that stress is difficult. But I understand the organizations that they must have talked to who supported me. And I think really that's what happened. It had to be, but I'm not sure who and when.
I appreciate that response. I'll comment again, like the same thing on your humbleness there. And I think you made an interesting comment too on, when you get the award, nothing has really changed. It is nice too, though, that you were recognized, right? You were recognized for doing great things and giving back, right? So I think it is important to also acknowledge that. Something that I'm curious, I think you were starting to explain, can you share, as a philanthropist, what are specific initiatives or a project that you've undertaken in the realm of philanthropy?
Just making people aware in the 90s of the AIDS crisis, of which we embraced the AIDS community. Instead of turning against them, in a sense, by not supporting them, we embraced them, did our best to make their life meaningful, particularly with the palliative care unit. When the song Streets of Philadelphia by Bruce Springsteen were showing the pain and anguish, we were living that. And so we had a choice, embrace it or do as some people wanted us to do. It's not our thing. It's a gay man's disease. We really shouldn't be supporting that. But I didn't buy that. Fortunately, I had a Roman Catholic sister who ran the place, or the sisters ran the place, and they were supportive. So it was something that, at the end of the day, we take off our tie and we put on some jeans and so forth and go out there in the gay community and decide to actually get to know them and see what we could do to help. And I was fortunate to have a wonderful person working with me by the name of Linda Dixon, who taught me never to give up. And every day she showed up, she had a smile on her face. And I said, if she could do that, I can do that. So, you could leave the world of investment banking and the greed that sometimes comes with it and go to a place where you can make a difference and you focus on those in need. And that was a big one. Recognizing the Vancouver Public Library as an institution that, there's a new project we're supporting, another new project that I'm supporting there that I can't tell you about yet, but the bottom line is people from all walks of life come in there, some homeless, some students come in there and they haven't eaten breakfast and they haven't eaten lunch, but they're in there studying. So it's not about wealthy people, it's about people from all walks of life. So the 16 years or so that I spent supporting that institution it helped to make it a better place for the people most affected. And for those who have, it's just a nice facility. It's open, it's safe, and it costs nothing.
I love that. Thanks for sharing those examples. And I really admire too, your kind of love and care for providing that support and those examples that you brought there of even just getting some food and stuff like that. And
I have one more.
Yeah, of course.
I support the Veterans Transition Network. So in the book, there's this wonderful story. I show up at a place called Horseshoe Bay on a motorcycle, and I see these other motorcyclists sitting around and having a coffee. And I see one that says on the back of his shirt, veteran. And I said, the obvious, are you a veteran? He said, yes. I said, well, one thing led to another. And I told him I was supportive of veterans through the Veterans Transition Network. He took a pause, he looked at me and he said, they saved my life. And because of them, I was able to get PTSD treatment and I was able to go to my daughter's wedding. And then he said, that wouldn't have been possible without that organization. So out of the blue, I met this person. And that's what I'm talking about. The reaching of philanthropy is not about me or the individuals donating or helping. It's about the grassroots impact that something like PTSD treatment is amazing, helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it goes to what you were saying before. It's about changing lives, right? Through the work that you're supporting. And it just shows you, whether it's through an organization or through maybe what we're doing right now, a conversation, there's so many ways that we can give back, to help others. Not that I'm trying to think of what I'm doing, but I feel like it relates to what we're talking about right now.
Yes.
But I have a big vision, Terry, of inspiring millions of people down the road, to achieve greatness and enhance their overall personal well-being, because they could be, financially fit, but not emotionally fit. They could be emotionally fit, but maybe not socially fit, right? And if you think about the wellness wheel, right, there's everything connected in terms of how we need to be to feel our best. And so it's a kind of a big vision to have, to help out many people of a lot of areas, right? And bringing on different experts like yourself or people that are passionate about these subject matters. So a question that I have for you is, when someone has a very big vision, and I'm sure there's people tuning in right now that have these dreams or visions, to really impact people and give back, but sometimes it could seem, pretty scary. So what piece of advice would you give to someone that truly wants to help and give back, but is afraid to take the step, maybe because their goal seems so big?
Build confidence by getting involved in organizations in a smaller way. Just be a participant, somebody helping out, and you'll gain confidence. That's what happened to me. I started one little fundraising initiative, or, one that isn't in the book. After I came back from the Vietnam War, that's probably the first example of something that I did was, away from the military. This homeless man approached me and said he's hungry and would like some money for something to eat. I said, well, why don't we just go to dinner, you and I, or lunch? I forget what it was. I think it was lunch. So why don't we just go for lunch? And then, we could have something to eat. And we did. That was a very small thing. It didn't make it to the book because it was one of the things that I didn't put in there. It went a long way towards, helping that man, and taught me the importance of getting involved early and randomly. And Pierre talks about in my book about random acts of kindness. I'm a great believer in that. Get involved, and once you start giving and getting involved in a minor way, you'll grow to taking on bigger challenges. Maybe part of a campaign, maybe part of one part of the organization that can help young people or help seniors or children. So there's ways to get them. You just have to pick your opportunities.
I love that, Terry, because it makes me think of, I've done a lot of reflection. Maybe this was over the winter break. It doesn't always have to be so big, having an impact on someone's life, right? It can be as simple as one person, right? That one conversation, even throughout life, right? Our daily life. But what I admire from what you said is just starting small. And I'm a big believer, when I was, doing some reflection, that whether it is global, which is on a big impact, or whether it is local on a small impact, it's the idea of starting, and the idea of when you're ready for that next challenge, if you're ready or if you want to, kind of like you said, you could take on different things like then a campaign, etc. And so it made me really think recently that I was telling you, before we got on this call, that I've been giving back a lot my time wealth, through leading running communities throughout Montreal. I don't do it because, I want people to know who I am or all that stuff. I literally do it because I know A, I like movement, B, I'm going to do it, and C, I know people need that kind of support or kind of inspiration of a community, or more than a community, to be active and healthy. When you, I think, follow your heart and you do things authentically for the right reasons, it's kind of fun when you're giving back. It's not so much a chore. In fact, it's because you're doing it for the right reason, right? You're not doing it for fame or money or anything like that. You're doing it out of pure authenticity. So something that I want to transition to, Terry, is you've kind of heard like the purpose of something that I'm striving for here, to inspire millions of people down the road, to achieve greatness and enhance their overall personal well-being. But a question I have for you is, what is your definition of greatness?
Greatness is, I think, what did Hemingway say? Being better than your former self. I think greatness is being humble, doing silent things that help to make people's lives better. And don't look for the notoriety. Do it because you want to, and do it because you can help. In your case, you're going to help, and the camaraderie that comes with it. The selfish part of it is, if I have one selfish part of it, and I'm sure you would too, in this amazing thing that you're doing in terms of running, scope of people doing it, is the camaraderie of meeting people and say, well, I couldn't do this. Oh, yes, I can. The next time you meet them, yes, I can. And I did it. The Marines taught me that. So, somebody who can't make it up an obstacle course, they can. But you have to, support them in doing that. Or you can let them fend for themselves. But either way, they can improve themselves. And the camaraderie that comes when you talk about this, whether it's a running group, it's just, it becomes part of your network, which makes, I don't work well, and I'm, in a home office. It's not something I'm particularly inspired to do, but I had to under COVID. But talking to people, being part of something that could grow, like your your running group, I think is amazing.
And it's cool to see too, like when you're giving back and helping evolve, right? Like in terms of your definition of greatness and giving back to community and all that stuff, that the momentum that comes out of that, right? And it's a feeling that everyone really catches on to, right? And community is so important. So I love too that you mentioned about, when you were in the Marines, feeling that community and that empowerment and that kind of team feel, so I love that. Terry, if you were to go back, give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think learn as much as you can at an early age. And I'm not talking formal education. I'm just talking about people you meet, through your life. Learn as much as you can from other people, and avoid the mistakes that we all make as much as possible. I think looking forward is much more meaningful than looking backward, because backward is already past. But as an 18-year-old, I was looking forward to joining the United States Marine Corps, because some things in my past I wasn't particularly happy about. So I couldn't change that. I could only change it by moving forward.
I love that. That's special. So always forward, never back. I'm happy that you brought that up. I think that's powerful advice. I think it is okay as long as it's no more than 5 minutes to, reflect in the past for a little bit.
Yes.
But I definitely agree with you, right? So we can learn from mistakes and life lessons. But I definitely really, really agree with you with always moving forward and at the same time enjoying like the present moment, right?
Yes.
Being present, being still, being mindful of what you're doing, the person that you're trying to become, or the people that you are with, especially because we live in such a society, where there's a lot of people being busy, and to make sure that we need to appreciate those moments, right? So Terry, now that you have a feel of, my podcast and what it is about, what is a life lesson you would want to share? If it's not a life lesson, what is a quote that you stand by that you would want to share right now with my listeners?
I think you mentioned on it. Take time for yourself. Take time for yourself for sure. And don't try to take on too much. Try to take it in bite sizes and feel your way forward. The life lesson I would give somebody is feel your way forward, realizing you're going to make mistakes. That's okay, because from those mistakes you'll grow. You'll be a better person. Savor a moment. Don't try to take on too much, and look for opportunities. In my case, to make the world a better place. A small thing, just try to make the world a better place. The Order of Canada says, what is the motto? The motto is, we desire a better country. What Governor General said in her speech, I want to be able to someday say we have a better country. So for us as individuals, I want to do better than I've done. I just want to do a little bit more than just the average. And I don't mean by money. I'm talking about by time, by great idea, by just getting up in the morning and say, you know what? I'm going to help out in this people that need food and clothing. So I'll join a group that gives sandwiches or walk around, gives safe needles, tough things to consider. But they can enter any of those things that appeal to them, and don't be ashamed. Just you did your best. Take time to yourself, and then regroup and go back and try it again.
I really love those lessons, as well as quote that you shared, because it even makes me reflect right now, on just being eager and keen, of all the projects I'm kind of doing, whether it's through writing or this podcast right now, or the run groups, and realizing that sometimes I forget, to give to me, to myself, and how important that is. So I really appreciate you, for, mentioning that, because I think it will resonate with a lot of other listeners who are tuning in right now, whether they're an elite athlete and they have a lot of training schedule, because, when you're at elite athlete status, right, it's a lot physically and even emotionally, or whether it's a CEO that's tuning in right now, who does a lot, for the business and their family at home. Right. So I'm glad that you mentioned that importance of taking time for yourself.
I say that because I don't know how many charities I've been approached recently that deal with mental health. So, the Globe and Mail, when they wrote that book review, Niall really understood, as you do, that we live in a society where mental health is affecting everybody, from my granddaughter to friends. And if we don't take time for ourselves and share our pain with others, we're not going to be able to give back. In order to give back and to be a better person, you have to take time for yourself, get help when you need it, reach out. And I think those are life lessons that I've learned since the book, by the way, because in the Marine Corps, you don't talk about mental health, not in those days. Nobody did. So, but I think it's really important to talk about mental health, and I was at an event at Whistler, at a charity I support. And I was just awestruck by this woman telling how many people they help in mental health in this small little office. So anyway, it's just, if you're strong yourself, you'll be able to give back more. Whether it's your running group, or one of the charities like just the public library where people. So I think it's really important to look forward, yes, but to learn from the present.
It makes me think of, the expression, you got to be able to fill your cup first before you fill the cup of others. So then you can be your best to help, right? And do those things that mean a lot to you. Terry, something that I want to move to is, who is a future guest? Someone that you personally know that you would like to see on this podcast.
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me think about that. Well, if you had somebody like Pierre Lassade, for sure, that would be a incredible experience if you're able to do that. Just trying to think here. That's a very good question. Let me think about that. I wouldn't mind, like there's some community outreach people that do some amazing things. Somebody from the Veterans Transition Network, they do such amazing things with veterans. A pro athlete who helps children, of course. I'll have to think about that.
You have all the time that you want because you got my phone number.
Yes.
Anytime you think of other people that you think would be a great fit for this show that you would love to hear on, never hesitate.
I will definitely reach out to you because I think you got a great show. I like the dialogue. So is this live?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Okay.
Where is the best place for my listeners to connect with you online?
I have a whatwegivebook.com. That is one way. And I'll tell you about that actually while I have you on the line. So through that organization, two wonderful things happened. So this is how people can reach me. Two examples. One, a friend of my wife who hadn't seen her in years and wanted to have her email. So she reached out to me after seeing the Globe Mail review, like your review. She reached out to me through whatwegivebook.com. And I was able to connect her with her friend she hadn't seen in 20 years. And then another more powerful, not more powerful, but really powerful story, which I think your listeners would appreciate. This man calls me out of the blue and said, I'm Canadian. I'm a Vietnam vet. I read your article and I really want to talk to you. He said, I was wounded twice in Vietnam. And I said to him in an email, I said, well, I'm honored that you would actually talk to me. He said, no, the reverse is true. So we had a mutual respect. And he sent me this hat from the 101st Airborne that he had. And he dropped it at a Vietnam memorial on Remembrance Day. It's still there. So these are just two people, and there are many, many others that reached out to me through the book or through this podcast or through a book review that somebody saw. That has been probably the most uplifting experience to hear from people from all walks of life. Either verbally, they say, I saw something about your book. Another friend of mine who runs one of the world's largest forestry companies reached out to me and just said, I couldn't put your book down. I read it cover to cover. And so, in there's a lot of life lessons. And it's ongoing. I got a letter from somebody who knew my father briefly, who was a student at McGill in Montreal, where you are. And so that's how they can reach me. whatwegivebook.com.
That's awesome, Terry. So I'll be sure on my end, to put all that information in the podcast notes. And I really appreciate you too for sharing those stories, because it just shows you that when you put out something good into the world, out of love and not fear, that lots of love could come back, so you also deserve to also hear from those people and make those connections, so I'm glad that those individuals reached out to you and communicated. And I'm sure someone from this podcast will as well.
You as well. You actually reached out to me at when I was selling books, which I'm not very good at, but I was. And you came by my booth and introduced yourself to me. Whether you had a podcast or not, that didn't matter to me. The matter of fact that you reached out. So I'm all about reaching out because I think good things happen when you reach out. If you don't, you miss all these opportunities. If you spend so much time criticizing, so I love the fact that I can reach you and you can reach me, and so can your listeners.
Totally. And especially in today's age, right, where you could reach out in so many ways, whether it's in person like we did or totally on internet or email, right? So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So Terry, I want to take this last moment, to really, really thank you for being here today. I really enjoyed having a new conversation more around, giving back and becoming a good leader in kind of any domain, whether it is philanthropy or, when you were in the Marines or with your business mind, so I really enjoyed having this whole kind of conversation with you. I'm also excited to continue this journey, our relationship together.
Me too.
I just want to take this last moment to thank you again for making the time today.
Appreciate it. Really nice to see you, man. Let's keep in touch. I'll see you when I come to Montreal.
Let's do it. Can't wait. Thank you for listening to the Living Your Greatness podcast. If this show has added some value, don't be shy to subscribe, leave a rating, and make a review.